Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is into plants that hurt. She's the owner of Ouch.Plants and also a market host for She.Sells in Orlando. Please welcome the head and handpicker of plants of Ouch.Plants, Jaslin Goicoechea. Jaslin, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking a moment to have lunch with me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I love it.
Awesome.
What's your go-to sandwich lunch?
Oh, my go-to, definitely peanut butter and jelly, or maybe grilled cheese.
Okay, those are the classics right there.
For sure.
Got to ask a PB&J question. When you make it, do you two questions on it? One, peanut butter, is it? And I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to assume. Crunchy or creamy?
Usually creamy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you do peanut butter on both sides of the bread, or is it one peanut butter, one jelly?
Oh, I think I put both condiments on one slice of bread and then put the other bread on top.
Okay.
So like peanut butter, then jelly, and then the other bread.
Okay. Got it. And then jelly, is it strawberry or is it grape?
Definitely strawberry.
Okay. Perfect. The reason I ask about the peanut butter is because, and granted, some people will tell me, and you may say the same thing, peanut butter jellies and sandwiches don't last long enough for them to get soggy. But in order to not make them soggy, what you're supposed to do is you put peanut butter on both sides of the bread. So it creates a barrier. So that way the jelly, because there's more moisture there,
right,
when you put it on the jelly, on the bread, it doesn't actually make your bread soggy. So if you were to actually pack a peanut butter and jelly for lunch,
yeah,
in order for it not to be soggy, you create the barrier with the peanut butter.
You like blew my mind when you asked that question, because I was like, there's one way to make it. Oh my gosh, there's another way to make it. I'm amazed by how many, if we're going to ask that question, then I might as well ask you the question on the grilled cheese. When you make grilled cheese, do you use butter or mayonnaise? Oh, butter.
Okay. And then do you make it, when you make it in the pan, do you assemble it and then put it on the pan, or do you go put the bread down and then assemble it there on the pan itself?
Yep, assemble it on the pan. So like bread, then cheese, but it's open face, and then I grill them and then eventually put them together. And
it's kind of interesting because like it's everyone's got like a different technique. I started doing it now, and I don't know if it's because I've seen other restaurants do it, and I think also because sometimes I do really poorly when I try to do pretty good job with the flip. Yeah. But sometimes I actually assembled mine now.
Gotcha.
I actually make it assembled and put it on the pan, and then have butter and put a piece of butter on the top of the top bread. So that way, as it's cooking, it starts melting the butter, and then it goes like that. I mean, sometimes I do use mayo, because the idea of the mayo is that the oil base creates a nice, nice toasty look to it.
This is awesome.
But that's not, but obviously, yes, that's not why we're here talking, as much as I love talking about a good sandwich. I want to talk a little bit about Ouch.Plants. Yeah. So first tell people tell folks a little bit about Ouch.Plants.
So Ouch.Plants is my love. It started out with a love of cacti. My grandmother has an amazing green thumb, and she used to grow all these plants, and I was always obsessed with the cacti. For some reason, I'm like, the spikier, the better. Those were the ones that I was drawn to. And then also an obsession with housewares. Okay. So I just had, more mugs than one person really needs to drink coffee in the morning. And so I kind of put them together. So it's cacti and repurposed and vintage housewares. And really anything that I can put a plant in is kind of what I use.
I love it. When did you decide to start this?
So actually I was in graduate school and way too busy. And then when I graduated, I remember coming home from work, like my first day after graduate school. And I got home at like 6, and I was like, what do people do after work? Like, I kind of just forgot that, there's like at least, 4 to 5 hours between the end of work and bedtime. And I was like, all right, so I'm going to start planting. Maybe that'll keep me busy. And then it just kind of grew from there. I was just really excited to see what I was creating and to share that with people. And then I was like, maybe this is a thing. So. Yeah.
What year was that? When did you start Ouch.Plants?
So that was the beginning of 2019. I graduated in December of 2018, and then by January I was starting to plant things, and then our official launch date was July 20th. of 2019.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and then when you, so I'm always, where did you get, so the love of plants obviously came from your grandmother.
Yep.
And you and I have spoken about this because I have no green thumb whatsoever. So like I'm horrible at this. I don't, and as much as I want to, I do love, cactus, and I love house plants that basically do not require, like succulents and things like that, don't require as much attention or love. But still, I still manage to kill them. So, one of the things that I love and what you've been really good at is the fact that you do, as you mentioned, you do repurpose a lot of the housewares, and use them. And sometimes you theme them. So it's like, you do a really good job at when you kind of go that route of like, hey, we have an event, and let's say it's, I don't know, like National Ice Cream Day, or hey, there's like a superhero day or whatever. You like tend to like say, hey, I think these would be really great to incorporate. So I'm kind of curious about like, tell me a little bit about the process of how you went from, because I'm just really intrigued by everything from okay, I love plants. I now want to make this a business to do, and start finding, like, where do you start finding these things and doing all that stuff? Tell me a little bit about that process. And then what was the next step for you to go, I want to now start selling them at events?
Yeah. So, that piece of it, I mean, it started out like, again, that I was planting and like, here, Aunt Lucy, here's my, little creation. You like plants. And so I started sharing them with people and was just getting, kind of good feedback about it. And then initially my thought was like, oh, I could have like a garage sale, but it'll be plants. And then I was like, wait a minute, like I grew up going to farmers markets and markets with my mom. That was like our go-to. It was actually the one like under Church Street. I don't know if you remember that. It was like under I-4. And so we would go there every like Saturday or Sunday. And so then I was like, this is something people do. They sell it. It just kind of, I don't know. It actually, I mean, in less than 6 months, I went from like, hey, I'm bored, to now I have a full-fledged business. And it was just kind of like, I could try that. Yeah. And kind of got there.
That's awesome though. I love that. And so then how did you go about it originally? Was it like, I have so much houseware in my house, I'm going to use just like I'm just going to sell the stuff that I have? Or was it also something that you enjoyed going and looking for housewares and things like that? Because obviously you do it in creative mugs, you do, anything that's kind of a creative place that would be able to hold a plant, you're literally using as a, kind of like as a receptacle for, a new home for the plant.
Yeah. So, and it's also a new home for that houseware. So I think that's kind of it too. I'm definitely a huge proponent of like repurposing, recycling, zero waste or minimal waste. So I did not already have a huge collection of housewares, but I had a small collection that I was like, oh, these would be cool to use. And I started there. And then initially, actually, for my business, I was going to start with just like very minimal design, like I was going to order pots and just do like very, small cement, kind of go that way. And then I was like, you know what, there's like really cool stuff on this planet. Like really cool. I mean, some of the vintage, like I'm obsessed with like vintage animal planters. There's like really cool things. And so it just kind of started from there where I, found one thing and was like, well, this is neat. And then I was like, I'm going to do this. And the hunt is enjoyable, going out, searching, finding new things. I'm notorious for like watching a show and being like, oh, they could put a plant in that.
I like that. Yeah. I love the fact that how one of the big things that I loved was like when you and I chatted, because I have bought some Ouch.Plants in our house, and you're very knowledgeable with the plants. So obviously it's not just that I enjoy plants, but you actually do some research and look into them.
Yeah.
Is that something that you just do because you kind of want to like make sure, be able to provide enough information for a customer to know that, how to take care of it? Where's that, like, is that just something that you just kind of like me, that you just like look, like I love looking up sandwich information? Is it something kind of like in that same aspect for you? It's
a little bit of both. I mean, I tell people, like, the thing about my business is that I want people who don't think they can have plants to be able to have plants,
like
me. Yeah, exactly. Like, especially I have to be honest. Yeah. I do not own, well, actually I own 2 leafy plants because they're a lot of work and they're difficult and they're not my thing. But cacti and succulents are so easy for the most part, or there's a learning curve with them for sure. But I think that if I can inspire people who really want plants and don't think they can have them, and give them a little bit of advice and, help them be successful with their baby plants, then, that's what I'm trying to do. So I already had some of the knowledge from my grandmother, but definitely when I started, I, made sure to know like as many names of all of them as I could, and really like, nuances about the different types and what they might like compared to others. So I think information's cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's very helpful. I think it also kind of helps to show that it's not like you're just like, hey, I like plants and this is what it is. Like you actually, there's more to it. And I think that always adds to the passion, but also to the understanding of the owner as well. Where do you get all these plants from? Because I see numerous times on your Instagram about you actually going and looking for cacti, like, cause you're not, you like cactus in all forms, like the large ones, as well as also obviously a little one that you can pot. But like, where are you going? Do you have like nurseries that you go to, or certain places that you kind of have created now relationships with to go pick up some of these things?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So I grow a lot myself, just from my own personal collection. I have some plants that are 12 to 15 years old, and succulents and cacti are very easy to propagate off of. So I do a lot of growing myself, and then I also work with a few local farms. We have so many amazing nurseries in Central Florida that I think people don't realize, and many of them like locally and family owned for decades. So I do work with a few local farms just because there's no way I can, grow as many as supply, as demand is requiring. So I do that. I also, I joke with people that I like to rescue cacti. So, yeah.
I have seen that.
Yeah. Grant and I actually, when we first started dating, we rescued this cactus from an estate sale that it was like just laying over on somebody's pool deck, and they were going to throw it away. And I was like, there's no way you're going to throw that away.
I think I remember that. And that you guys cut it up into pieces, and it was almost like 10 or 15 pieces. Like it was a lot of cacti, right?
So actually this one we planted at our house.
Oh, okay.
And it was only about maybe 4 or 5 feet tall. And now it's a good like 10 feet tall.
Holy cow.
And has so many arms on it, and it's amazing. And then, so the other one that you're referencing, yes, was another cactus rescue.
Yeah.
And that one was actually, I think we had almost 50 to 60 pieces. It covered our yard.
I almost, when you say cactus rescue, all I can think about is like, kind of almost like you guys should like video it, almost like a Reno 911 like, you know what I mean, style. You're like, we're going in. It's gonna be a prickly situation here. Let's find out what happens. You know what I mean?
All
like
the
you do.
puns.
Yeah, you start hitting all the puns on it, and just kind of like, this is our rescue. I hear. Like, I mean, that's literally a lot.
That would be amazing.
That's one of those fun ones. So one of the very favorites and always popular that I've seen and I've heard people talk about and everything like that are the troll ones.
Yes.
Which is amazing. It's an amazing concept. Obviously, if everyone knows what a troll doll is with the hair, but instead of the hair, it actually has a plant. Where did you come up with this idea, and then how the heck are you finding these trolls? Because I know that there was like an abundance of them, but I mean, it's got to be kind of difficult to find because you've sold many troll plants. So
I actually saw a picture. Oddly enough, it was like several years before I even started Ouch. I saw a picture of somebody who had taken a troll doll and glued like fake plants on it, and I screenshotted it, and it was in my phone. And then I was also obsessed with trolls as a kid. They were like my absolute favorite. My dad would take me like once a week when the new one came out to go check them out or buy one. And so then when I started Ouch, again, just trying to like up the creativity, I'm like, okay, I'll start with pots. Now we're on to mugs. Now we're on to vintage planters. And I was like, all right, what's the next thing I can put a plant in? And so I was like, I'm going to see if I can do this like with a real plant, and figured out a way. People often ask me, oh, you just pull the hair out, and it's actually a lot more complicated than people think.
I'm assuming obviously the hair's got to come out, but you're also going to have to like cut it open properly in like a certain way.
Because it is an actual planter. Like correct. It goes all the way through the body.
And it's got to have water. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to have water, be able to go through and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So obviously you did some R&D work on some of them. I know you've sold quite a bit. So like my question is, and I know I've asked this before, do you do the route of like, is it eBay? Is it like, is there like just kind of always constantly in the search?
I'm constantly in the search for sure. eBay for sure. I've actually met somebody at a market who was like, my grandmother has a whole collection she's trying to get rid of. And I was like, please give your grandmother my card.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely looking. I have lots of amazing friends who also own really cool vintage businesses that are also on the hunt for me. So yeah.
Do you have, and speaking of community, and obviously you've mentioned Grant, former guest, also Grant Vintage, so he obviously caused quite a bit. So it's kind of cool because you start with between the markets, and we're going to discuss that next. You've created a great community. So right. So that community obviously is looking out for you, and obviously kind of like the same way when people think of me of sandwiches, I always think of you when it comes to plants, especially when it comes to like succulents and cacti and stuff like that. Like if I find anything kind of fun or kooky or whatever, or pun related, I always try to send it to you or whatnot.
Yeah, I love that.
So, and I think that's amazing. So like how important is to have that kind of community especially when it's something like this, when you're like always in the hunt for like a fun place to put these plants?
If I'm honest, I think it's the best part of this job. Like plants are, a huge part of it, but the community and, what I see and all my friends do is like the biggest part. It's very cool to hang out with people who are, equally motivated to strive for their passion, share what they're doing. I don't know. It's the best part. It's like a family. It's cool to see what people are doing. We're all doing something different. Yeah. It's just neat.
So you have a full-time job, and you also run obviously Ouch.Plants. How do you balance? And it's funny because how do you balance it because of the way that from working and then also being able to set up, because you do, I want to say at least 2 times a week, usually like some kind of night market during the course of the week. And then on the weekends, how do you balance it, or how are you able to pull it off? Because I know I would love to sell at some of these night markets.
Yeah.
It's just very difficult for me to be able to finish work and then be able to like head somewhere on time to be able to then set up and do all those things. How do you pull it off?
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
So I've definitely burned myself out.
Yeah.
But I think part of the problem is I love my other full-time job too. And it's also a passion project. And so I have, at first had 2 very full-time jobs and have now gone a little bit more part-time starting this summer with my other job, and have kind of been able to put a little bit more energy into Ouch and to markets as well. But yeah, it's a constant checking in with myself and being like, Jaslin, you're about to burn out again.
Yeah.
And learning to, Grant and I have been learning to take days off, Yeah,
I mean, especially since the both of you do so many markets together. And that's one of the things, like I know that he set up a lot with the TPD, 407 Flea, as some of the markets that you guys do that he started. And then obviously I'm assuming based on seeing some of that, you then also got inspired, have been inspired as well, and you actually started She.Sells.Orlando, which is a great market. I'll tell people a little bit about that market, how you came about it, and a little bit what that market's about.
Yeah, so but Grant and I are, kind of tag team with all of the markets. Yeah. And so it started from that. And the city had asked us to run a few more markets. They really like what we're doing down at the Circle and what Grant was able to build there. And so we were trying to think of just another, cool market concept. And I've seen, all female, small business owned markets pop up, here and there, like maybe around Valentine's Day or things like that. But I really wanted to create, again, just another offshoot of our, small business community, because there are such amazing small, female-owned small businesses. And so it's really cool. I told somebody it's like hanging out with my girlfriends, and we're all working at the same time. But it really is just I don't know, I wanted to create this little space for us, and it feels good. So it's kind of started there. We just, needed another market concept, and we tried it out, and people seem to really have, again, good feedback about it, and the energy felt right. So that's
great. I absolutely love what you're trying to create. And I think one of my other guests mentioned that like one of the things that they've realized being in Central Florida, Orlando area, is that there's a little bit more opportunity sometimes when it comes to some of these things that you wouldn't expect in our, like if you have a concept or an idea to be able to start something and actually, take it and actually put it into market and make something out of it. So I absolutely love the fact that you guys are doing all these markets. I also, at the same time, I like, obviously we got like during summer times and you deal with the weathers and the heats and the evenings of it. And that's kind of one of the toughest when it comes to those things. What kind of tips would you give someone? We'll go with like a night market as well as also just doing markets in general. Do you have what tips would you give? Because obviously you've done quite a few. And the funny thing is, even if you're not doing a market, you will go to events that have markets to support other small businesses, which I absolutely love seeing when you guys are, first off, I'm surprised when you're not selling somewhere and then when you're not, you're still going to support someone else. So I love seeing that. But yeah, what are some tips that you would give someone if they were going to be doing a market? And then obviously if you have any extras that you would give if you're doing a night market.
Oh, goodness. So like if they're vending at a market, honestly, if it was an association test, the first thing that came to my mind was make sure you have tent weights. Yeah. We've had, like you mentioned, this weather has been pretty interesting, especially this summer. And I've seen my fair share of flying tents. So definitely tent weights. Just to get specific here, business wise, when you're talking tent weights, you're not talking the little like 5-pounders. You're talking like something like, what would you recommend to have or to kind of look at or consider if you were looking at tent weights for someone? So honestly, I do use the little, they're not 5-pounders, they're like 10-pounders, but a lot of them. So I think that we typically try and use at least like 20 pounds per leg. Okay. So a good like 80 pounds holding your tent down. Because those little 5-pounders, I feel it's funny. That's how I started. And they seemed to work great 3 years ago.
Correct.
And now
Correct. Yeah.
It's a different story. Yeah. So
gust of wind comes in and it's just straight up, flying. It's like a kite.
Exactly. Yep. So those are the ones I use. But people, I think that's the other cool thing about, doing markets and stuff is people get really creative with their setups, with their weights. I've seen people use water recently, which I think is cool. Like they have like these big like camping jugs and fill them with water. And I'm like, oh, well, that's easy because then you can pour the water out into the grass and then you don't have to carry that home. Yeah. So cool stuff happening. What
other tips would you give? Would you give someone for maybe a setup or display or something like that? Obviously, always good if you're thinking of doing markets. I mean, I've been doing this for a while as well, and I'm always taking ideas from other people and trying to learn from them. But do you have anything that you kind of like? These are like some of my go-tos that I think would help someone.
So I think the other thing that really stands out for me is like branding. I think that's such a huge part of it, which I know you love too. Yeah. But for me, it's very like, I like things to be clean. My logo is white and black lettering and, clean, crisp, straight lines, something that will make people think of you. I see a sandwich, I think of you. Yeah. People see a little cactus, they think of me. Like just something that kind of sticks with people. So I think branding is a huge part of it. Leaving space. I think sometimes, I think I've seen vendors who maybe try and overpack their space, and sometimes it's hard as a customer to like breathe, So leaving white space, leaving space to like be able to look and explore and all of that in your setup is important to me, at least. So yeah.
I think that, and one thing that you do really well as well, because you obviously bring in some elements, you bring some different levels of height. As well, which I think is super important when you're trying to look. So that way you're kind of, because your eyes then are not focused on one area, but it kind of almost gives you a little bit more area to kind of look and surface areas to see. Sometimes it's okay to go vertical and get creatively be able to go vertical. So I definitely understand that. What about night markets, like when you're doing in the evening? Because nothing worse, obviously, as it gets dark, not enough lighting. What do you use for lighting? I'm always intrigued by that because sometimes there's not electrical available. So like, what are you usually using to light up the inside of your tent or for your products to be actually showcased?
Yeah, lighting is definitely the biggest thing at nighttime. So I honestly found this cool little light at Home Depot. It's like a construction, I don't even know what it's called, but it's a little like construction light, and it's extremely bright, and I have a white tent, so I make sure to like point it up. So it actually illuminates the tent, which then is what illuminates the products. But it's, again, very cool to see what other people are doing too. There's a lot of like cool patio lighting now, like kind of like string lights, but plastic, so they're not going to break. I see a lot of people use can lights. There's really cool like rechargeable what are they, like chandeliers too. I've seen lately.
I've seen some of those.
Cool.
I've seen some of those as well, where people have been using those. And if they're not chandeliers, they're like the stick. They're almost like these like stick lights.
Oh yeah, I've seen
that
those
kind
too.
of like rechargeable, and then like they also can kind of magnetize to the tent.
Yeah.
And do that as well, which I think is pretty amazing as well. What I guess like so I'm bad at plants. I mean, we've kind of I've mentioned it numerous times with you. So I'm also kind of curious. What are your 3 tips for taking care of plants?
So again, I can only speak to cacti and succulents.
That's fine. But
number 1,
yeah,
sunlight. I tell people, I think there was like this movement in the interior design world where they started like buying fake cacti and putting like huge, 3-4 foot cacti inside of a bathroom, and no real cactus can live like that.
Yeah.
So sunlight for sure. The second thing would be watering, only like once or twice a month.
Okay.
And honestly, even if you forget, it's better to forget than to overwater. And then the third thing is drainage holes. So that was the other big thing. All of my planters, I hand drill myself to make sure that your plant lives, because there's so many vessels that don't have them, and your plant is sure to die.
So you actually have to drill some of those mugs and all that stuff. You have to do all of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I drill them all. I will say that's not my favorite part of the job.
I was gonna say how that is there like I mean, I'm assuming you've now kind of figured that you've kind of got a knack for it and have like your own little setup already of how you do it, and kind of, be like, okay, it's time. I got all these 10 new mugs and things that I have to now use. So I'm like, I have to drill my holes now.
Yeah. I plan around the weather because I do it all outside.
Yeah.
So usually it's early morning, actually, before my other job. So I'll wake up early and go, I have a table that actually my dad helped me build for my business, and I love it.
I love that.
So I'll go out there, and it's that people ask me that a lot. It's been a learning curve for sure. When I first started, I feel like it was like one successful hole, one planter that blew up in my hand.
Yeah.
And so now I've learned what I can and can't drill. I have, several different drill bits that I use, but it definitely takes time.
And I'm assuming also at the same time, like you can't go full on. You have to it's kind of like little by little type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm always intrigued by this. Did someone in your family was an entrepreneur or ran a business or anything like that?
So my dad is definitely a creative type.
Okay.
He never owned his own business, but was told by so many people that he should. He likes to make jewelry, like beaded jewelry.
Yeah.
He also my dad's a Marine, retired Marine Corps, and he makes, like jewelry out of like paracord and stuff like that.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's just super creative. He's a handyman. He's always building shelves and building stuff, and was my absolute best friend as a kid. So I think I just kind of got that, plants from my grandma, creative spirit from my dad, farmers markets from my mom, and it kind of got all mixed together. Just kind of blended, just like the dirt. You blended all that good stuff, the fertilizer, all that good stuff to kind of go from there. That's awesome. I'm always intrigued by that and see kind of where people get or where they come from or where it stems from. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm trying to figure out, and just listening and talking is like, is it something that is instilled based on family, or can you be just something like someone just said, hey, I really want to do this, and I just did it? Because like for me, that was kind of where I kind of went from. Like I decided I wanted to do this, and I did it. But my parents were not. My mom was creative, but they never did a business, never did anything like that. So they always kind of. That's why I'm always kind of curious when it comes to that. So that's I think I hear a little bit of both. I've talked to people who they're like, oh, I'm third generation soap maker or whatever, and then I've talked to other people who, like you, are just like, I just got this spark and went with it.
what do you think, since you guys, like you do so many different markets with you and Grant and like in your own, what do you think are some, like, it's essential for the success of doing an event of like in it itself? Because I think a lot of times, and I've talked this, I've had conversations with Courtney, who did like the DeLand and Sanford markets. And like, one of the things that we've talked about is sometimes that I feel like, sometimes I think people forget, and I just kind of, I feel like people forget when or at least vendors forget, that when they're trying to like do an event, that it's like a collaboration of everyone to promote it. It's not just, yes, like I'm paying to be part of this, but yes, I'm supposed to also help spread the word.
So I think that's where my other job comes into play. So I'm a behavior analyst by trade, and that's not just for people with disabilities; it's for people. So I think a lot of like motivating, techniques, finding what makes people excited. For example, for She.Sells, since we're indoors this month, typically we have a DJ when we're outside, but we won't have a DJ this time. So I put it out to our group of vendors, like, hey, I'm gonna start making a playlist, but I'd love for you guys to collaborate. So I shared it with the group. I was expecting a few people to, be excited about it, but within like 20 minutes, we have 10 hours of music, and everybody was like, this is so awesome. I get to listen to my favorite tunes while we're vending at your event.
That's
so
awesome.
I think it's finding what makes people excited, things like that. And like you said, it has to be a collaborative effort. It's not, hey, I'm doing this, you be there, do your thing. I think it's important to ask people, your vendors, what works for them, what they like, within reason. I think that with my events, I try and, come up with ideas and put it out to the group and, get buy-in and stuff like that. So I'm not telling people what to do, but I'm sharing, hey, this is what I was thinking. What's your opinion? Let me know, no pressure to participate if you don't want to, but, this is our thing. It's not my thing. It's something we're all doing together.
So this is going to be like, I went from like very kind of a good serious question, but I'm going to ask, this is a silly question, but there's a reason for my silly question.
Yeah.
Do you talk to your plants?
Sometimes, yeah. They have names. I have a little mascot.
Is it Guillermo? Or
Geppetto.
Geppetto, yes. Geppetto. Very good. Very good. Geppetto, because he's in a pot.
Exactly.
And he has like a wicker chair, which is like the most amazing thing, and a sombrero.
Yes. He has several other hats, but he wears that one most.
I love it. I love it. No, hey, you gotta have a mascot. The reason I ask is because I am guilty of this. I sometimes do a little more research than I should. Mm-hmm. But I was kind of curious. I was in my research, and I'm going to share with you. Did you know that a study was done? And it was done at the University of Bonn, which is in Germany, where they used laser-driven microphones, and scientists have found that plants do say "ouch."
What?
They hear flowers whimper when a leaf is cut, a cucumber squeals when they get sick. And I, of course, jokingly, in my notes, I wrote, I bet they cheer when someone takes one of your ouch plants home with them.
Aww,
but
so sweet.
You can now use that to let them know, because obviously, one, the beautiful thing about your plants are they're not leafy plants.
They're not.
So if anything, all they're going to be saying is like, hey, I'm thirsty, or however, like that's going to be like their one thing. But, and then it's going to be, I'm thirsty, and then cheering that they're going somewhere else where they're going to get some love and sunlight. But
I collaborated with Friend Lily Press, and we made these little plant sticks that
I've seen those.
Almost like speech bubbles for your plant.
I love those. Are those always available? Like, is that something that they can pick up when they go and shop from you, or?
You know what? They are definitely coming back. So I had done them, and then, life got busy and I burnt myself out, but definitely something I've hope to bring back very soon.
I really hope that one of them says I'm thirsty.
It does.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
It actually says thirsty AF.
Oh, nice. I love it. I love it. What's your advice for someone who's wanting to start something?
Oh, gosh. I guess my first thought was like, do what you love.
Yeah.
Like, just go with it. It could turn into something really cool. I think also find other people who are also doing what they love and see, how they've done it best, what's working, what's not. When I first started and I was looking like at farmers markets, I actually took like a month and I went to every single farmers market in Central Florida to find like the one that I thought was going to be the best fit for my business. So, that like doing, like you said, doing research.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's so important that, and I think also the fact that you said like surrounding yourself with people, like, do you have, and obviously I know you have, but I'm just kind of curious, like where have you created that community or that bubble of like because obviously what I've come to the conclusion that what you surround yourself with, it's kind of like, almost like if you were planting a plant, right?
Got good soil.
Good soil means growth and means opportunity and means like to be able to grow and kind of, maybe even outgrow your own pot, but at least to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my question is, where have you gotten that? Like, is that something that you've either created mentorship and asked people those questions and kind of brought them in as mentors, or is it just people as you start doing more events, you kind of brought little by little brought those people into your pot?
I lovingly call all my friends, all the vendors, frienders, because they're, it starts out as like, oh, just this other person set up in a tent next to you. And next thing you know, you're sharing stories and ideas and, your inspiration and what you're going to do next. And so it definitely evolves into these cool friendships that, I think that's kind of where I get that mentorship from.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that, because that's one of the things that I love the most is that aspect of getting to know other people around you, seeing other people. And it's also the fact that like, we're all doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. We're doing something that we love, what we're passionate about. We're taking time. Some people are doing this like literally full time. Others are doing it where it's like, hey, I'm using my time. My time is precious. All of our times are precious. Yeah. And we're all doing something that we love and we're using it to do, to have like, our idea and kind of share that idea. So
right.
I think that's amazing. And I totally agree with that. And I love that. Frienders. I love that concept. Where can people follow you? Where can they shop for your plants? And maybe attend, give me all the socials for She.Sells and your Ouch.
Yeah.
Give all that information out.
So you can follow Ouch.Plants on Instagram. It's at Ouch.Plants. And we're on Facebook too, but I do most of my stuff through Instagram. Yep. You can follow our market at She.Sells.Orlando. And then you can shop our plants at several really cool places around town.
Yeah, you've really done a really good job with that. Talking about that, just out of curiosity, is that something that they've approached you? You've approached them? And then how do you kind of rotate? Because obviously, since do you take care of the plants yourself, or do they take care of it once they have it in their stores? Yeah. How does that work?
So it was a little bit of both. A few people have reached out to me and have created that collaboration. Others I've reached out to myself, and they've been open to the idea and have embraced having our plants in one shop is called Duo 58. Yeah. And they're an amazing little coffee shop out by UCF. Mm-hmm. We're also at the Neighbors, the Owl's Attic, and Echoes of Retro. And a new shop in Sanford called Unfurl.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they're very all cool. over the place, but again, work in progress. The cool thing is that cacti don't need to be watered but once or twice a month. Yeah. So I do take care of all of them at the stores. But it's, again, finding that balance of, when do I go to this shop and then this one and this one. And I'll admit I'm not the best at it, but trying to get better, growing, right?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. There's things that I sometimes can do really well for a long time, and then you kind of slip up, and then you kind of pick up on something else. Yeah. It's definitely a series of learning. I think when you're kind of even more so when you're like a solopreneur, it makes it even harder sometimes because it's that whole thing where you're like, there's a lot more involved and you're doing all of it. So
absolutely.
That's kind of sometimes even makes it that much harder to kind of do the juggling game, right? And the balance aspect of it. So that's I definitely understand that, and I feel for all those that kind of have to move themselves up and have to chop themselves up into to kind of separate themselves to be able to do everything. Yeah. So Thank you so much for having lunch with me today. I really do appreciate it. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for Jaslin for being on, having lunch with me. If you're definitely make sure to check out Ouch.Plants online. If you're in the Central Florida area, she's going to be most likely doing a market somewhere. Definitely check out her Instagram, Ouch.Plants, to be able to go see what she's got. If she's hosting an event or being part of one of the events, you can obviously hear more about the events as well from Grant's in podcast interview as well. They do quite a bit of different events, which is amazing. Not to mention sometimes we're doing all events together, so you can definitely follow me or follow her. Yeah. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. If you want to support, check out my brand, Deli Fresh Threads, do some shopping, and obviously tell your friends. I always enjoy a good sandwich selfie. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thank you so much, everyone.